So Jeremy and I are here to talk again about a review of a TV episode. In this case, we're jumping over to the Black Mirror series, which I was not aware is back on Netflix, I guess, or back on the air with a brand new season. Um,
Yes.
I did see the astronaut one that you were referring to a little earlier there, Jeremy, but
Uh-huh.
he had the idea of let's look at something highly relevant, especially to his skill set, talking to
hmm
people about the psychology of the internet and social media and the dangers therein. There was a really poignant episode called Common People. So,
Yes.
yeah. So why don't you lead in a bit, Jeremy, because this is your special area. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, for anybody who hasn't seen the episode yet, spoilers, spoiler alert, because we're going to be really getting into the psychological facets of it. And as you know, for anyone out there who's seen Black Mirror, it really is a modern day Twilight Zone
Mm.
anthology series where the twists are always predicated on some tech issue, some way technology has interfered in life, kind of like a monkey's paw. Like it gives you something, yes, and then something is taken away. So our story is about a welder and his wife, who's a school teacher, and it's very interesting because it starts out painting the scene with the wife being Amanda. It's Mike and Amanda. So Amanda is teaching about how bee drones do what real bees used to do of pollinating flowers. So we already know this is kind of like a world where, um,
Huh.
there's some dystopia with nature. It's interesting because that's like one element there. I thought it would maybe even have more
Right.
futuristic stuff like that, but it didn't really go beyond that. It seemed like our world apart from that. And of course,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, the other elements of there's a YouTube kind of version out there called Dumb Dummies. There's this streaming service that's basically like you're paid to humiliate yourself in certain ways. And actually, there's websites like that. I'm not going to name drop, but I was watching this episode with my brother, and I'm like, oh, it's like this website where people will go and they'll like write things on themselves and humiliate themselves in some way. So that's very accurate for now. And you can get donations from
Wow.
people depending on how much you up the ante. I mean, you can do that on YouTube too. You can be a live streamer and but YouTube has a limit, I think, to like what they'll allow you to do, thankfully. But there's other hosted websites where you can do, you know, dangerous things to yourself and get money potentially. So our
Yeah.
episode starts with the husband seeing that, like his coworker telling him about that, and then um, the couple's trying to have a baby. They're working on it. Wife has a tragic accident where she or not she
A
falls over while
tumor.
teaching school. Yeah, and she has a tumor. So she gets a new technology implanted where part of her brain is cloned and put in, and this might actually be something interesting for us to talk about. She uh her husband has to make the decision, let her die basically or have this new technology implanted that puts your a part of your brain in that was cloned, and that you pay monthly for access basically to your brain, right? And you have to stay within a coverage zone like a cell tower, and you also have to um pay for, like, you also sleep more, okay, so keep that in mind. So it
Huh.
starts out the couple decides to go that way. Like he makes the decision on his own and has to tell his wife about it. And it works out for a time. And then the subscription price goes up, right? As we know happens with other services, other streaming services. So that element of the couple being, forced to do things to like Mike gets on this website, the Dumb Dummy site, to humiliate himself. I figured that would happen because they showed that at the beginning of the episode. I was like, oh, well, he's going to have to do that because nothing in these
Huh.
shows is ever taken for granted, right? Which is good
Right. Right.
storytelling. You
Yeah.
always show only what is relevant, and so the ante is up to where subscription goes up, and the Mike doesn't pay, if they don't pay as a couple, this upward cost to have access to her brain. Well, she's going to start blurting out ads, what she starts doing. She'll start saying things that are advertisements and without remembering what it was for. And people comment like, "Why are you saying that?" And she'll start advertising coffee and not remember it. And so the
Huh.
episode kind of is this struggle for
Wow.
them to afford her continued brain power, and there's friction there because, like, I don't know. I don't think I want to spoil much more. I mean, we could talk the ending. Guy works welder, wife is a teacher, so you've got some real masculine, feminine job descriptions there. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's interesting they chose to go with that. Um, and they also, which by the way, you don't hear a lot about blue collar. I'm glad they had a blue collar job guy because you don't hear about that a lot anymore in a lot of shows. So they chose to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and the conceit of them trying to have a child is very interesting as a plot, as a momentum thing. And then if anybody's ever heard of that story, The Gift of the Magi, where the couple gives
Oh yeah.
themselves, yeah, right, very similar to this, where their whole goal of her being alive and all the doing, having, trying to have a
Oh wow.
kid, that kind of
It's
falls by the
O.
wayside.
Henry. That's
Yeah,
O. Henry. Yeah. So it's this dystopian gift of the Magi. Oh
it
man.
is. And one thing
That's
I wanted to say that I thought was
wow.
interesting before I toss it to you was, for one, if you clone someone's brain and you grafted it in, I'm thinking that it would take like a skin graft because memory is distributed across the brain. It's not in one spot. We know that.
Right.
And so the show is like hinging on you believing that. So she has one part of her brain that's taken out and then cloned and put in like a new one. I would think she could survive because there's people who survive with like 10% brain. I know it's just a TV show, but it was interesting because I'm sitting there talking about it out loud with my brother, and I'm like, well, actually, I don't think you have to pay to access your brain. The brain is dynamic and stores memory across different regions. But of course, it's just a show, and it's more predatory. Like it's scary if the idea is your brain is in the hands of some company. Um, which the salesperson is just played terrifically. Like, oh, well, it's going to be a small cost, but you have so much more stuff to do. And then the idea that you have a upper tier of service that then, so is used to power, the wife is used to power
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
subscribers for this higher tier, where you can blunt out and increase your emotions. So it becomes all about like, oh well, let's have this upper tier versus just surviving and having your brain. And so that's a really good commentary. um, and I noticed like the husband's drive to provide, right, the providing and protecting, Zeus instinct you could probably talk about. I didn't even expect that to be in there, but his whole tragic fall is predicated by that. Like he's just trying to do what he knows to do to provide. So interested in
Wow.
your thoughts on that. Yeah,
Wow. It's kind of a Sisyphean as well, like just rolling the boulder uphill, um,
absolutely.
and it
Yes.
keeps rolling back down, which is like
Yeah.
debt.
Very
Yeah,
Albert
I mean,
Camus. Yeah.
yeah, I think any kind of Twilight Zone esque morality play kind of thing like this has layers and layers and layers, and part of the fun of it and the curiosity and intellectual exercise about it is like Inception, with a movie I'm not sure I understand, but you can look at it at so many different levels. The first thing I thought of when you started saying that in order to sign up for this kind of Faustian deal, this
Yes.
Elon Musk meets Faust, Neuralink meets Google's Singularity thing that Google's doing, where for
Oh, okay.
$2 million you can preserve your whole all the data in your brain
Oh,
for $2 million,
okay.
and it's going to be like a ghost of you, and it's protected for decades underground in Arizona
Ah,
or something, in cooled down
yeah.
generator run plants or whatever. You can look at that level, and I know you like doing that and you're good at doing that. The first thing I thought of though was the concept of within sleep and dreams, since stories can be dreamlike,
Yes.
that there's manifest content and latent content in dreams, right? The
Yes.
manifest content is the what you see is what you get. What's on the surface is what's going on. And we certainly can follow this couple in terms of oh, what drug addiction does, what debt does, credit cards are relevant to what the husband goes through trying to preserve the wife. But then what about the latent content? And it made me think that all through history, there's always been advances in technology, right? And they're probably frightening to many and it can feel like apocalyptic potential every time there is a major advance in science or technology. And yet we still go on as a species. So I was thinking, what would it have been like if back in the day during serfdom, if you had to trade your allegiance to the serf master in exchange for your potential freedom getting dangled before you for a certain number of years, like indentured servitude? Like, what was that, 7 years or 10 years? You can sign up to
Yes.
be an indentured servant in the
Yeah.
1700s or 1800s or before that serfdom and so forth. Or in the Ukrainian Russian steppes, this where you could be a serf working the fields, and if you did it for a certain number of years, you'd be let free. And then again,
Yes.
my mind drifts to having been a almost lifelong student loan
Yes.
payer back,
Yeah.
which felt like serfdom. There's
Yeah.
nothing else you
Of
can do.
course.
You cannot change fields. You cannot, downgrade your income ever. You must always be escalating in order to
Yes.
pay those student loans. I mean, so
Oh
there
yeah.
are all these different levels at which you could look at this thing. And
Yeah.
I'll stop here by saying I was more drawn to the relationship of the couple
Uh-huh.
with each other, and I of course got drawn into, is that similar to Stephen King's Langoliers, where if you don't move on, with a new path in life, that uh, the Langoliers, the spinning saw blades, will chew you up. They chew up reality. They chase behind you and they chew up reality.
Ah,
It
okay.
made me think of that with this guy. Like it made me think of just the end of a relationship, as
Yeah.
opposed to a tumor and a death and a chance to sign up for a subscription. It sounded like being addicted to a relationship, or being in a codependent relationship, or narcissistic abuse scenario, covert version, where the man just stays
Man.
and stays and stays and pays and pays and pays and never quite gets back to the love bombing, never gets back to the
Yeah.
origin of the relationship. That's what it felt like to me.
Man, that's some good symbolism. You remind me of this book, How to Read a Book Like a Professor, and I loved that. I need to go check that out again. But it's a really good
Huh.
recommendation for people who want to kind of do what you're doing. Um, of really delving into the symbolic meat of a text, and of course, anything can be a text. A episode of a show certainly can be. So, going further with your metaphor on staying in the past and being at
Yeah.
risk of being kind of your reality disintegrating. I mean, you could say he humiliates himself to pay for this function that's an upper escalating subscription model. Well, what does that mimic in the biochemical world? It mimics um, the kind of, so you've got tolerance, like in addiction, you
Yeah.
need more and
Dopamine.
more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's more and more, and he loses his job. So that's very much like if you're obsessed with something, if you're addicted and you lose your job by erupting at the workplace, or if you're so obsessed with the past and such intense
Right.
grieving that you can't live in the now. Your workplace, what do we say as therapists, what do we say as a therapist and a psychiatrist, how, what makes something a mental illness? Impact on vocation, scholarly life, socialization, all those domains suffer along with
Yeah.
subjective distress as an element, and that's a mental illness. I mean, we could go deeper into the biochemical, but that's what we had before brain scans, is those check marks, those boxes. And so that's certainly in this episode, just like it would be for someone who couldn't move on from a breakup or abuse. Like I like it, it now becomes kind of a metaphor for trauma and what really makes something traumatic, or complex grief, which is not normal grief, if there is such a thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of complex grief, I just got another association to this. There are two films, actual full-length films that predate this that I think have similar
Ooh.
themes. A more recent one was with Hugh Jackman and Rachel Weisz, The Fountain, where Hugh
Yes.
Jackman is trying to preserve and preserve and preserve the life of Rachel Weisz at any cost, and he was furiously working as a scientist to try to find the cure for her cancer and keep her alive and this sort of thing. And decades before that, there was Robin Williams, rest his soul, in the movie What Dreams May Come, which is an
Ah.
allusion to Shakespeare, where a husband had lost a wife and she is in this buried like house at the bottom of a valley, and it's all fantastical, dreamlike, nightmare like existence where he can't pull his wife out of depression. And guess what
Right.
both of those movies really are from a Greek standpoint? They're the tale of Orpheus. It's Orpheus
Yes.
and Eurydice. Orpheus, the like the root of morphine, to lull you into a stupor, which is music does that. So Orpheus was the god of music, and he was so brilliant and gifted that as a mortal, that the gods loved his music, and his music actually was what was immortal about him, although he was mortal. It was so beautiful that he got invited to by Hades, the god of the underworld, and Persephone, the queen of the underworld, to go down into the underworld when his
Hmm.
wife died, to try to retrieve his wife who had already passed on. And he was the only mortal ever allowed down into the underworld by the gods of the underworld. And the underworld is symbolic of the unconscious in general.
Yes.
So it's the world of the unconscious. And it's a testament to how music is so wired into humans as an art form, and maybe as a special art form among art forms, in that a musician would get invited to be the only mortal ever allowed into the afterlife, to be allowed to
Hmm.
return, but only under special terms. He's allowed to try to bring his wife back up to the surface of the earth, but he must never look back to see that she's okay, to see that she is indeed following him.
Mm.
And of course, he's at the almost at the surface, and right at that moment, he loses his control and can't help but look back to make sure she's right behind him as he pulls her to the surface. And the
Uh-huh.
moment he looks back, she's ripped away and back down to the afterlife. And
Mm.
it's a terrible tragedy, right? Because
Right. Of
it's
course.
the impossible human attempt to try to A, live forever, or B, maintain a relationship forever if it won't last, if it can't last, to try to force a relationship to go on.
Yeah.
Um, the loss of love, complex grief over the loss of love. I mean, it's the tale of Orpheus. There's nothing quite like it. And the symbolism of the one rule of Hades and Persephone is you may not look back, is implying it. Say a couple went through a hard time,
Right.
or got a separation or something like this, and they were maybe going to give it another go. The only way to save it is look forward, move forward, not to dig around in the past. And isn't that something true of couples counseling in general, that they speak to, that sometimes focusing on that which is negative just expands that which is negative in your
Yeah.
minds,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I love your so under the underworld as unconscious. I love that. I mean, I'm thinking of how and the realm of symbols, like Batman going into the Batcave, as you talk about the Hades
Yeah.
instinct, and then
Yeah.
that's going into the underworld, and he takes the emblem of his fear from the underworld, from the Batcave, the bat that terrified him as a
Yeah.
child, and then wears that as his burden and his source of as he confronts villains. Like, and Scarecrow is all about the embodiment of fear, and he's one of the rogues galleries that keeps coming after Batman. Like, it's very interesting. Like, his loss of his parents as a child is so terrifying, and then he has to keep confronting that as a hero. He is like the hero of the unconscious, of the underworld. I think that would be
Right.
a whole
Right.
interesting series for us to do. But you also remind me of the Bible story of um, Sodom and Gomorrah, of Lot escaping and his wife looking back and turning to a pillar of salt. And I've heard a lot of different teachings on
Yes.
that, and that it's not like that
Yes.
temporary look back that was the sin. It was I want to go back to that life. I want to go back into Sodom and Gomorrah, into Sodom. And so it's like, oh well, that desire, the desire for the past, and so that dovetails with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Orpheus, like
It
inability to
is
move on.
Orpheus.
Yeah.
Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot. Lot is Orpheus. You know, that's
Mm,
the same moral lesson, in
very
different
interesting.
clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of feel that's what this Black Mirror was too. It was the tale of Orpheus, that you will not win against nature.
It's really
You
interesting.
know,
There's another one.
technology,
Yeah.
technology will not defeat nature,
Yeah.
which is also Frankenstein. It's what Frankenstein is
Oh,
the lesson of too.
yes. Yes. Oh, that would be a whole nother good episode. We're just riffing on here. Hey, let us know in the comments or tag us when this episode comes out, everybody, and let us know what you want to see us review and why. That's great for uh inspiration. We don't I mean, there's so many movies to see. I mean, I like what you say about music. One of the interesting things
Rock
about music.
stars.
Yeah,
What's that?
of
I mean, sorry
course.
to interrupt, but
No,
what is
no.
the ultimate representation of a human who can almost be worshipped, that everybody loves and just gets free passes into whatever they want all the
Yep.
time? We use the word rock star. Why don't we say, ballet dancer man, or
Yeah.
why don't we say fine artist, painter? We say
Yeah.
rock star, right? It's because of Orpheus and our
It's
tie
very
to
interesting.
music.
Yeah. It's interesting too because you would think like football star, or I mean, and what American guys, we still use rock star, and I'm more into music probably than sports, so it doesn't really apply to me. But even
Yeah,
people that are more into sports than music would say you're a rock star versus, I mean, I don't know. People will say that was a touchdown, or they say Monday morning quarterbacking. We have football stuff in the lexicon, but you'd think it would be more. And this
right.
makes the argument that it's more deeply embedded in the unconscious to lionize and venerate music. So I'm with you on it. I mean, if you look at music, one thing it has over movies is music is more immediately emotionally relevant. And so what you do with music is you have a rhythm, you have time, so you have space and time as the two big axes of music. If you didn't have time for different sounds to register, you wouldn't have a song. A song is not boom, one noise altogether, and you need like music is very impactful on the body. If you're in a concert and you feel it in your chest, I mean, and you don't have to know the story. Stories are great in opera, but with movies, with literature, you need time to read and you need deeper understanding. Music hits the unconscious quicker. And I think there's a relevance there to how EMDR therapy, you take someone's story, you move through the beach, you move through there's a rhythm to EMDR therapy of
Right.
tracing the emotional rhythm and cadence, the up and down waveform of you're in the memory, going up in stress, you get a break. You're in the memory. And so we use rhythmicity and rhythm as a therapy in EMDR to go deeper without having to sit and expound verbally on it. And I think that makes that more powerful than, well, how do you feel? Well, let's go. I think EMDR is quicker because there's a musical quality to it. I've been meaning to say that for a long time, but I'm just gonna say it now.
Oh wow, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've
It's a
thought of
metronome.
getting a metronome. I've thought of getting a metronome in order
Yeah.
um to do online. EMDR
Oh yeah.
for that reason. That's
Well,
interesting.
there's so
Hmm.
many tools. There's an app now you can get that has a ball that goes back and forth, and you can control it. There's a free version and there's a paid version. There's a lot of we'll talk offline. There's actually a lot of cool tools you can use for online
Ah,
EMDR now.
wow. But there's a rhythm to it.
Yes,
And also any
and art.
song has a beginning, a middle, and an end, just as stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And
Yeah.
I think this Black Mirror was also about time. And actually there's a tie, believe it or not, to the final episode of White Lotus in the
Ooh.
arena
Okay.
of time,
Yeah.
where there are three girlfriends at the White Lotus, and they're kind of wrapping up, summarizing their vacation together, and it's all been about religion and spirituality, the conscious mind and the dutiful, ethical, moral mind of the
Sure.
conscious, and the animalistic mind are joined together in
Oh.
Thailand in this
Okay.
story, and they explore the religions of Buddhism, Christianity, contraposed with just plain hedonism, drug use, all kinds of things, thoughts of
Yeah.
murder, and these three female friends, just to cut to the chase, they're talking about what have I learned, and one of them says, I've tried various religions, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried love, I've tried relationships as my God, and none of them really satisfied.
Mm.
But the one thing that did is time. And she said she thinks
Okay.
time is her God. In that,
Mm. Okay.
as time passes, we have the opportunity to learn and grow and expand who we are if we use that time well. And now back to Black Mirror, it seemed to me that everything about this, whether you looked at it through the lens of addiction or codependent relationships or credit cards or marketing, the evils of profiteering,
Yeah.
or even technology, that it's all about that which takes our time. And was
Yeah.
it time well spent, well lived, or not? And addictions take our time, and
Yes, they do.
wasteful relationships take our time. Advertising takes our time.
Absolutely.
Concern with learning new things that are then immediately obsolete, takes our time,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Like if you ever learned basic computer programming or something like that back in the day,
Yeah.
kind of a waste. Today, the newest tech that comes along, it wastes our time
Yeah.
because there's going to be
Well,
another model. So it's about time. Are we
yeah.
using our time well or not? Are we really living with our time?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, so here's the human fear of being obsolete. I mean, that goes obsolete means old in computer language. I mean, so the human fear that you can't do what you used to, that you don't understand the youth, that you don't understand what's going on now, I think is relevant here. I mean, the if you think also deeper, I love that you're going symbolic with it. See, that's why I love these movie and TV reviews. So if you look
Yeah.
at the the fact that the wife is tethered to a geographic region and she can't even go to where they once went for an anniversary trip to this really silly little bed and breakfast, like, what does that mean? Well, it's a song and also an old adage that you can't go home. You can't go back. So literally, she can't go back to this place because it's outside of her brain subscription coverage area. But figuratively, her and her
Right.
husband aren't there anymore. The newness of this cute
Yeah.
spot that they went to as a younger couple isn't there. And so I mean, all couples end up in that spot if you're together long enough. And the question is, how do you persevere and
Right.
develop something new instead of living in the past? Like to also shout out your Orpheus point more. Um, I refreshed myself that he actually was killed by the Maenads for not getting over his grief for his wife. I mean, how
Yeah.
is that? How about that for how complicated grief and trauma unresolved can lead to your demise. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Tukasabi's syndrome, broken heart syndrome, right?
Yes, that's
One
real.
person dies,
Absolutely.
the other member of the couple dies potentially
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
truly of a broken heart, temporary broken
Yes.
heart. But yeah, it's well, that's the Langoliers. I mean, the Meneids are the Langoliers that Stephen King wrote about in his novel. It was made into like a
Yes.
TV short series at one point. But the Langoliers chase you to your death if you don't move on and move forward into the future. You can't stay in the past.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't live in reminiscence forever.
No, you can't. So nostalgia is a tricky mistress. I mean,
Nostalgia.
we
Yeah.
we draw on it so much, and nostalgia kind of eats itself now. You've got people nostalgic for, 5 years ago, whatever. Culturally, there's been a lot of argument that we're not. There's nothing to hook on to now. Like we're just living in the eternal present since like the 2010s, which I think is interesting to think about because all these
Right.
other decades had something really defining, like the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. Well, I would argue the 2000s from 2000 to 2010 were very unique too. I'm biased though because I loved that era, but I mean, it's something that we have to deal with our clients all the time. I mean, trauma, the way people view the present as worthwhile or not and where they get their identity is a huge boost or it's a like a debuff in video game terms. I mean, you and I have so many clients, I'm sure both of us who it might surprise them how we talk about you can't get your identity from just your loss or your trauma because that will consume you. You actually can't just read articles that are self-help about how your trauma this and that because you have to have a presence, a positive that you embody in your life instead of just what you're not and what you've lost. It just that's
Right.
throughout
Right.
human history a solid theme, but in our world now there's so much emphasis on look at what you've lost as a part of your identity and really talk about it, and there's an end to talk as helpful, and that's a big mic drop moment and a big like shocking statement that I employ with clients now. Your past matters, but it can't jeopardize your present. And people aren't hearing that enough. They're hearing so much junk therapy online, so much anti-therapy that doesn't really do anything but say wallow. You can't succeed in wallow. I challenge anyone to show who embodies that. You can even anti-heroes show how they're moving forward to avenge or to do something with their pain.
Right. 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 Which
Absolutely.
well, the story of Orpheus, let's get to the ending here
Yes,
of what we're
yes.
talking about, of Black Mirror, and of does it relate to the story of Orpheus. So Orpheus will not let go of his grief, just like the man who won't let go of the subscription for his wife. He won't let go of his grief, and the Meneids tear him to shreds, leaving only the head. And the head of Orpheus will go on through eternity singing because his voice was so beautiful. And that reminds
Mhm.
me of really any artist who has had flaws and foibles or addictions or failed in some massive way, like, even failing to suicide, um, such as Kurt Cobain or Chris Cornell. I think of the head of Orpheus being like their ongoing music, lasting forever.
Yes.
The head of Orpheus,
Absolutely.
they preserve forever. That's the one part of him that becomes immortal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, your body of work, your corpus. It's called a body of work. That's your
Yeah.
substitute body. That's one of the things you leave behind that
Yeah.
impacts. I mean, and that's what I mean. People have sought more immortality in two ways, mainly literally or through meaning. So, we know the poem of Ozymandias, look upon my works in despair. Well, your statue's degraded and there is nothing left there, right? Like a tale
Yeah.
that I think people can take from that. Yeah, that's really. sad that nothing you do generation upon generation will be preserved. But look at the fact that it was a conqueror. Like, what if he were a rock star? Maybe he would have been known. We know Shakespeare generations down the line. We know his works pretty well. So maybe a good message is be creative and leave something behind that is artistically or human theme wise relevant, and you will be remembered versus just conquering and through aggression. How about that for a point?
Good point. Mic drop. Um,
Yeah, well, and
don't
that wasn't where I was intending to go. Thank you. I just kind of loosely
don't
connected
be a
that.
one hit wonder.
Oh, yeah,
Don't let your life be a one hit wonder. Don't be the artist who's a one hit wonder in your
agree.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you get hung up on chasing
Like you're done,
lightning in a
done
bottle.
creating.
Yeah.
You don't move on. You don't move into the future
Yeah.
with
I mean,
the next music you're gonna make.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. Absolutely. It's interesting. Black Mirror, that was an especially upsetting episode. There was another one that was a very similar theme, where the gender roles were reversed, and the wife, I think this was season one, um, and I can actually point to the very episode in a second here, but there was an episode where um wife loses a husband, and she managed to uh get him get a clone version of, yes, it's episode 4 season 1, Be Right Back. That's a really good one. So that one,
Huh.
I think, should be, if we were pairing
Yeah.
drinks with dessert here, we were creating a meal, I
Yeah.
think people should watch and do it
Season
reverse
one.
order. What?
Season one, episode 4.
Yes, I think they should
Okay.
watch this episode of season 7,
Yeah.
episode 1, and then watch season 1, episode 4, Be Right Back, and see how someone can handle grief relatively
Yeah.
well. Because this one, the person navigates without spoiling it. I mean, this was came out in 2013, so I mean, I'm sorry, even if I did spoil it, but it's a very interesting look at someone clinging to the past and then going through the phases of grieving. Like, well, wait a minute, this isn't going to serve me well. It's really not. I can't do this. Here's how I make a compromise and keep the past alive while also living. And so I won't spoil the ending, but I would say that's how this person decides to do is a compromise on keeping memory alive, and it's a little eccentric because it's Black Mirror, but I mean, I
Mm.
think what makes it different is it's an android in this one, in excuse me, in season uh yeah, in this season, but and Be Right Back, but it's actually the human being in our season 7, episode 1. So of course that's a lot more. It's the actual person he's clinging on to, which makes it more narratively compelling. So I mean, I don't envy that situation.
You know, I want to say one last thing. You make me think, since we got on the topic of music and its connection to storytelling and its connection to having to keep moving forward with our
Yes.
lives and not be a one hit wonder, to have more music to
Yes.
make with our lives. I think of the word saudade, the Portuguese word, which is also a Portuguese kind of music. Um, a friend of mine, Alain de Botton, brought up this word a number of years ago in his website. Um, the oh, what is it called? He's a Swiss philosopher, and the website is the School of Life. Yeah, and he talks about the word saudade, which means it has no English translation. It literally means to remember someone lost
Wow.
from the past, both happily and with sadness at the same time. Happy to remember them and to remember those times, and sad that they are now gone.
Yeah.
And there's no English translation of that word, and there is even a type of music called sadad music that is both happy, sad at the same time. And it strikes me that how could there be an emotion that's both happy and sad simultaneously about reminiscence and nostalgia? And I think it's that if we weren't happy in remembering a past, then we don't even know who we are today by way of how the story got to this point. But if we can't be sad about the realization that the past is gone, then we cannot move on either and make more music. The music ends. So that's kind of how would see the word sadad as being
Yeah.
relevant here too. Happy and sad at remembering the past
Yeah,
of
I mean,
somebody gone,
I
somebody
I
lost.
completely agree with that. I would say you do, but that emotional nuance is like a rich dish that requires a mature palate, right? So when we talk about maturity, um, I don't think we can miss emotional maturity, obviously. So when you have a culture that says, have your slop of instant, very visceral happiness, or it's not joy, that's for sure, maybe a
Yeah.
sense of elation or contentedness, and then you have your sense of loss, or more like withdrawal, right? A sort of withdrawal based loneliness or loss that happens now. I mean, think about that's like, here's your burger and here's your fries, which I love a good burger, and there's variance in how good the quality of beef is, and toppings and whatever, so maybe that's not a good example, but it's like, um you're happy or sad, right? That's it. That's your palate. Your palate is unsophisticated. It's infantile. But a mature emotional palate says, okay, I can withstand this unique flavor of sadness and happiness. And it's a dialectic, right? What we teach people now is hold a yes and rather than either or perspective. And so you have the dialectic of, I was happy for that, and I need to move on. That requires you to have a good wine tasting palate, a good maturity, that you have to be a sommelier of emotion. I like this metaphor. I really think that people have to work on that now versus I'm either happy in a selfish way or sad in a selfish way. I'm either in a state of tolerance or withdrawal. No, no, no. That's not the
Or
human condition.
my identity is that of just sadness or
Yeah.
that of loss or trauma.
Or
Yeah.
trauma. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, remember what Tarantino once said: revenge is a dish best served cold.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, Tarantino. What do you have to say about him? I think he's a profound student of human dialogue and emotion. Otherwise, his
Oh yeah.
dialogue would not land the way it does. It's a very dangerous task to have dialogue heavy movies. It
He's the
very easily
Shakespeare of
goes
B
wrong.
movies.
What
I
did you
think
say?
he's the Shakespeare of B movies.
Well, I mean, here's the thing though. So most of his films are widely hailed as A movies. They're not
Yeah.
enjoyed as campy, because Pulp Fiction, it straddles this line of elite cinema and camp. I've never heard anybody say that Pulp Fiction is like cringeworthy or so bad it's good. So,
No, no.
but think about all the movies that are that have a similar temperament of have people talk a lot. I mean, that's the movie The Room is a lot of talk, and I
Yeah.
mean, it's laughed at. It's like, well, why is that? Because the screenwriter just didn't nail the authenticity of the dialogue, and it became laughable. Man, I love that. What about Revenge? Where'd you want to go with that?
I just wanted to end with that because you started getting into culinary metaphors.
Ooh,
So,
oh,
so
well, we should
I
talk.
just thought I
Yeah.
would throw in a total non sequitur there and Tarantino
Mm.
reference to just sort of jar us to a conclusion. Actually,
Oh, well,
revenge is a major theme of White Lotus. I still want you to see all three seasons of White Lotus,
I've
but
seen the
maybe
two
start
and
with the
three.
third one.
Yeah.
You've seen two.
Well,
All right.
I've seen both. I've seen the first and second. I was trying to watch it chronologically because I thought that three might build on two, because now I don't know that it does, because I know that one character's not in it that I thought was going to be. So I won't spoil that.
Well,
What?
there's
No
a
one.
different character in it.
Oh,
There's always
cool.
one, at least one character that lasts to the
Yeah.
next season.
Oh,
So
one thing I want to
we'll
close on.
see.
Do
Yeah.
you remember when Tarantino? This is hilarious how much this relates. So you were talking about living in nostalgia and living in the past. So Tarantino, I am not criticizing him at all if he ever listens to this. Here's what's interesting. One of the only missteps that critics thought that he had was he made the grindhouse drive-in movie duo of, well, no, he made one of them. He made Death Proof, that movie with Kurt Russell as the
Right,
killer, and then Robert Rodriguez did Terror Planet, and they released it as like this grindhouse cinema duology that would come out. And Tarantino
right.
loved those B movies, so he made one. Didn't do well. That was him leaning into his own nostalgia, and that's the movie critics didn't like that well. So how much does that go along with what you're saying about you
Ah,
have to have your
yeah,
nostalgia and not let it guide you? And so he did, I think actually Death Proof is really good for reasons that we can explore later. And you could actually look at it
yeah.
as a gender, like
You
the
have to have your
masculine.
nostalgia to know who you are, but not
Yeah,
live in it. Eventually, even Owen Wilson in Midnight in Paris had to leave,
yeah,
1890s Paris and then 1920s Paris.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Beautiful.
he had to leave. He had to come into the present.
Yeah,
And of course, marry Leah Seydoux, which is not bad. All right.
I would say, yeah, I think she's quite a catch. I mean, she's done a lot
Yeah.
of good work. She's in
Oh
one of my
yeah.
favorite video games ever. So
Oh really? What's
Death
that?
Stranding. Yeah, it's a divisive pick, but it's from um Hideo Kojima, who created the Metal Gear Solid series, and he's very cinematic. He created one of the first video games that was cinematic heavy on the PS1, meaning he put a lot of animations in there. So he has a cult following, and he is just brilliant. And he has a book called The Creative Gene that I think everybody should read.
Ah,
So, man, this was
nice.
really good.
It was
Think
great. Thank you
all these
guys,
mic
all of you,
drops.
all of you for joining. That's amazing. All right,
Yes.
you guys. We'll continue. Maybe pick another Black Mirror. Who knows?
I think so. I think we just go through it
Maybe
possibly,
White
see what we
Lotus.
think. No, we're
Let's
going to do
get
what
into
we're
White
going to.
Lotus. All right.
We're going
All
to.
right.
All
You
right.
got it.
Talk soon.
Okay. Bye.